Hello and welcome to Sunday Family Devos at Chapel Hill United Methodist. I'm glad you're here with us this evening. These are stories out of the Jesus Storybook Bible. I love this book for kids, toddlers, adults. It tells the story of Jesus in a really relatable way, and the pictures are awesome. So last week we talked about a story called Let's Go and the disciples in the desert. Today we're talking about a story called A Little Girl and a Poor Frail Lady. The story of Jairus' daughter from Luke 8. Picture. There you go. There once was a little girl who didn't get out of bed one morning, or the next, or the next. In fact, she didn't get out of bed for a whole month. She was very sick, and no one knew how to make her better. Jairus was her dad, and he loved her. One day he was sitting by her bed, holding her hand, wishing there was something he could do. I know, he said. He jumped up to his feet, put on his coat, kissed his daughter, ran down the steps, past the servants, out of the house, through the gates, along the road, into the town, up the steps, and in the temple. He fought his way through all the people until at last he found who he was looking for. Jesus, he said, falling at Jesus' feet. My daughter, he pleaded, please. He didn't need to beg before he'd even finished speaking. Jesus reached out his hand and helped him up. I'll come at once, Jesus said. Jairus' eyes filled with tears. Jesus was coming. It's gonna be okay. In those days, of course, they didn't have ambulances, so they had to go by foot. Jesus' helper knew that if he would be able to heal the sick girl, he would need to hurry. If Jesus didn't get there soon, it might be too late. But everyone was in the way, hustling and bustling, jostling and pressing, pushing and shoving, squishing and squashing. Struggling today. Kelsey is struggling today. The disciples ran ahead, forcing back the crowd. Suddenly, Jesus stopped. His friends looked back. What was he doing? Who touched me? Jesus asked, because he felt power go out of him. Me, said the little frail lady. I don't know if you saw her. She was looking ashamed down at the ground. The poor lady had been sick for 12 years, and she had to get well. She knew if she only touched Jesus's coat, she would be healed. So he touched his coat, and instantly she was well. We don't have time, Jesus's friends said, but Jesus always had time. He reached out to his hands and gently lifted her head and looked into her eyes and smiled. You believed, he said, wiping a tear from her eye, and now you are well. Just then Jairus' servant rushed up to Jairus. It's too late, she said. Your daughter is dead. Jesus turned to Jairus. It's not too late. Trust me. At Jairus' house, everyone was crying, but Jesus said, I am going to wake her up. Everyone laughed at him because they knew she was dead. Jairus walked into the little girl's bedroom, and there, lying in the corner in the shadows, was the still figure. Jesus sat on the bed and looked at her pale hand. Honey, he said, it's time to get up. And he reached down into the death and gently brought the little girl back to life. The little girl woke up, rubbed her eyes as if she just had a good night's sleep. Oh no. Oh boy. I lost our page. There we go. And she leapt out of bed. Jesus threw open the shutters. The sunlight flooded the dark room. Hungry? Jesus asked. She nodded. Jesus called to her family, bring this little girl some breakfast. Jesus helped and healed many people like this. He made blind people see. He made deaf people hear. He made lame people walk. Jesus was making sad things come untrue. He was mending God's broken world. So the story is about how Jesus performed miracles in people's lives. to make the world less broken. And while currently Jesus isn't here on earth that could come to your house and perform the miracles in person, he's given us the power and the ability to perform some miracles, to be his love. And that love is a miracle and can change people's lives. So I want you to think this week about how you could do good in someone's life. You're probably not going to touch, let's say, their table and bam, a meal appears. That's not the kind of power God's given us. He's given us hearts and tongues and arms and hands and feet to go and do the miracle of God's love in the world. So as families, this week you could discuss, what are some miracles you've seen in your life so far? Some things that seemed like they would never happen, but they did. And how do you think God and God's love had a role in those miracles? It's also okay to talk about times when you hoped and wished for a miracle and it didn't happen, because those are sad times and they happen. But somewhere in there, there's probably a piece of God's love. You just have to look really hard. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Sunday.